lovers, and welcome back to the Woodshed. This week, I'm so stoked to have my very first true Americana bluegrass musician in the shed. We've got Trey Hensley here, and man, what a fabulous player. Trey, thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey Andy, thanks for having me, man. Love your playing. I'm thrilled to be on here today.
Yeah, buddy. So for all the viewers that aren't familiar with Trey over the past few years has been just kind of lighting up the bluegrass scene with Rob Ikes. And for those that don't know, Rob's playing. Rob is a dobro player, and these guys have been doing these duo records and duo performances, and it's just outstanding. Like, I'm a fan of stripped down music, and a lot of times in duos and stripped down music, a little bit of the horsepower and firepower kind of has to take brings it down a little. Not with Rob and Trey. You guys are flooring it, dude, and it's awesome. It's like the energy that you would expect from, almost a rock show or something, but with like acoustic and dobro. And the first time we met, I think it was the Dia Dario event about 8 or 9 years ago. It was a long time, and then we didn't get to keep up for a while, and all of a sudden social media happens and reconnecting or whatever. So man, what got you into bluegrass? I want to start at the very beginning. What got you into bluegrass?
I mean, I've always loved it. It's one of those things, I grew up in East Tennessee, and so it's always been present, in my life. My parents were big bluegrass fans. My dad played a little bit of banjo when I was a kid, and so we went to a lot of bluegrass festivals and stuff like that. And my granddad had a big record collection, a lot of Flatt and Scruggs and Jimmy Martin, and so I loved listening to it. And then I went to a bluegrass festival in Elizabethton, a place called Slagle's Pasture. They used to have a festival there. I think it ran from like the 70s, up until probably 2002. And the year that I went, I guess it would have been 99 or 2000. Jimmy Martin was one of the headliners, and Charlie Waller was too. And they played on the same night, like one after the other, And it blew me away. And I wanted a guitar, and started playing pretty soon after. I mean, it wasn't the next day, but it was within the next week or so.
Right.
And man, it's just, there's always been something that, kind of drew me to it. And I don't know what it was, I don't know what the, I just love it. It's always been, especially guitar, bluegrass guitar. It's always had a big draw for me.
So you said your dad played a little bit of banjo. Did he do the claw hammer thing, or did he do the Scruggs style?
Scruggs style. Yeah, he was, he had a, Earl Scruggs banjo, and he was doing pretty good at it. He just played around the house, and I know he took lessons before I was born, and I don't think he just didn't have time. He's a mechanic, and he likes doing that more than he likes playing banjo. And
I think what's going to happen in this episode, and you'll have to bear with me, a lot of my viewers aren't grassers. Like, a lot of my viewers are like electric guys, and we're going to end up, because this is like putting on an old pair of shoes for me. This is how I grew up too. So we're going to use a lot of terms, and I'll pause it throughout to kind of clarify. Clawhammer and Scruggs style are two different forms of banjo playing, but they're like the two industry standards, right? So Scruggs style is what you see, guys, that's like the Bela Fleck, like what I would consider the more popular kind of way of playing the banjo with the finger picks and stuff. So that's just so moving forward in the conversation, everybody joining us at home, that's your terminology for today is clawhammer and Scruggs. So did you play any guitar before getting into bluegrass, or was that like ground zero?
Pretty much ground zero. I mean, I got a guitar for my 9th birthday, and I just didn't ever play it. It stayed under the bed, and I think I took, maybe a lesson or two where I learned, G, C, and D, but it just didn't do anything for me, and so it was really that Bluegrass Festival that started it all. And it was kind of Charlie Waller was the catalyst, because he was a great rhythm guitar player, but he played some lead and stuff. And so before that, I don't know that I'd ever really paid attention to anybody playing guitar. It's like I just saw a lot of people strumming, and when I saw that, is like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to I want to play licks and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So with that said, that's a great segue, man. I have to say that you play with such an authority. It's like you don't even like when I listen to you play. I'll chime in on your Facebook streams and all the stuff that we've all been kind of doing during the C virus lockdown. But man, you play with such an authority and such a solid time feel and such just an intensity that I don't even miss like a mandolin chop or a rhythm section or anything. Man, can you tell me and the viewers, like, how did you develop your kind of take on lead guitar playing? Because I hear your influences, right? Like I can hear the Riceisms here, the Brian Sutton thing there, the Doc thing here, but like it never sounds like them. It sounds like you, and it always sounds like a tip of the hat. And the one thing that I think I say about your playing more than any other detail is just that, like, man, that authority. Like when you play, it's like here is the downbeat. And how did you develop that along with the ability to put in some of those really slick triplet pull off things where you'll do like a triplet or a sextuplet into a line and it keep that same solid feel, man? How did you work on that stuff?
Well, I appreciate all that. I mean, a lot of it was sitting around playing with records. I mean, I was sitting around and just play along with like JD Crowe stuff, and I think I picked up a lot of that like downbeat just from like listening to other instruments, especially JD Crowe. I mean, that you didn't have to wonder where the timing was, and I never for some reason, playing along with the metronome and stuff, it didn't. It felt like work to me. And so I never did, and so it's always just playing along with records. And yeah, I think, especially those first few years that I played guitar, it was all Bluegrass Album Band and Tony Rice and that stuff, man, is so in time and so perfect that I feel like it helped a lot with my timing, even without using a metronome. It was like, you don't need a metronome when you're playing along with Earl Scruggs or JD Crowe or anybody like that. And as far as like, I went to a lot of jam sessions and a lot of bad jam sessions, a lot of good jam sessions, but some bad jam sessions. And it always bugged me just because I played along with those records if the timing wasn't there, and I always felt like just the rhythm guitar, its role is to keep everybody in line, and keep everybody in time. And so I feel like I had sort of developed that ear just from listening to those records. And so then just kind of going out into the real world and I learned as much from playing in the crappy jam sessions as I did playing in the good jam sessions. And, but yeah, I mean, it's all, it's all been a work in progress. And then this duo thing has helped a lot, because like I said, there's nothing, it's just me and Rob. There's no, and occasionally we'll bring bass and drums, but there's no mandolin. There's no, anything. You can't hide behind it. And so I feel like this duo thing has really brought out more, working on the timing and working on just being there, just not letting anything slip by, because there's only two of us and we're kind of counting on each other 50% of the way at least to not drop the ball. And with only two people, you can really tell if you've dropped the ball. And so that's helped a lot, And like the triplet stuff, I don't know where that came from. I don't know where it started. But yeah, it was just like one day I sat down and I started playing that stuff and like I said, I mean, mostly it was just playing along with records. But for the longest time, I was just trying to copy Tony, I would play Tony or trying to copy Brian as you do, and I think, I grew up picking a lot with Tim Stafford, and he he was a big influence, and or he still is, and I think he was a big help in, saying, well, there's already those guys out there, and he's got, when you hear him play, or when you hear Tony, or you hear Brian, it's them.
Yeah, I
And
mean that's the beautiful thing, right? Like there's no doubt in my mind when I hear David Greer, it's like a
yeah,
couple of notes, it's like wow, man, it's Dave. It's like you can just hear it, and that identity is something we've talked about on the channel a lot with electric guitar players, right? But I think it's to me personally, only to me, my opinion, I think it's a little more fascinating on acoustic guitar because with electric guitar, it's like you play Wagner, you play, whatever, and it changes your sound. You play Fender, and it changes your sound. With like acoustic guitar, it's like, hey man, we all kind of just play big dreadnoughts. It doesn't matter if it's Martin on the headstock or Collings or Bourgeois or whatever. It's like it's a lot of cut from the same thread. Everybody's still
yeah,
trying to make that perfect dreadnought, no matter whose name's on the headstock. And at that point, personality comes out so much more. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, hey man, it's these and this, and go for it. So speaking of that, man, what kind of instruments do you play? What's your string gauge? Are you blue chipping? I mean, is that
oh
like,
yeah, man,
yeah, yeah,
blue
yeah.
chip, blue chip only.
Yeah. So what are you rocking these days most of the time?
Man,
String gauge too, because I think the authority thing, like that string gauge. What are you doing there?
it makes a big difference, man. That string gauge, and even the height of the strings, and the way guitar's set up, it all makes a difference. But I play medium gauge, so 13 to 56,
Yeah.
D'Addario nickel bronze. I love those strings. They're, for some reason, like any string that I used before that. So they would, you go through the whole phase of, well, it sounds bright and tinny, and then it would kind of go to where it sounded perfect for about 5 minutes, and then they're dead. They're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And so these just sound great. I mean, there's always going to be that tinniness whenever you put a brand new set of strings on, but I feel like these, it gets rid of it pretty quick. I mean,
Which
that
was
sound
those one more time? Those are the 13s and what?
13 to 56 nickel bronze
Nickel
D'Addarios.
bronze. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I just tried. I did a gig last week, and I tried some of the XTs. I'm still
Oh,
kind of,
those are great too, man.
yeah. I'm still messing around. Obviously with like the bluegrass kind of thing. I set up my guitars a little different than doing the strummy sideman kind of thing. It's like needing different stuff. Um, with that said, how hard do you play? Like, could you play just a little bit and just kind of maybe go through? Pick anything you want to play, like any tune, whatever, and just play just a few minutes of it, and walk us through like how hard you actually are playing the guitar.
Okay. Yeah, man. I play really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
buddy.
I'm playing pretty hard. Yeah.
Sounds great, man. The old Beaumont rag, right? That's for those that
Yeah.
don't know, that the Beaumont Rag and Black Mountain Rag and a lot of those tunes, they're very common in the jam session world. So if you've grown up in the rock side of things and you're interested in this kind of music, what Trey just lit up on fire is a tune that's going to be very common at your bluegrass festivals and
Yeah.
things like that. Man, great playing, dude.
Oh,
Just top shelf, man. When you're playing a lot of those like open string things, those kind of isms, right? Where
yes, yeah.
how would you kind of talk to someone who maybe has grown up not in the bluegrass open string world and they've grown up more with the rock thing and they're
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
get into the those kind of things? How would you kind of explain that?
I think a lot of it comes from well, obviously it comes from Doc, but it comes from listening to fiddle players, I think. Because
Okay,
there's a
give us
lot
your
of that,
Doc Watson
crony.
isms. Give us your opinion of the Doc Watson isms because you and I take that for granted. Speak if someone has never even heard or has no idea who Doc is.
Yeah, I mean the Doc thing, Doc, it's kind of hard to describe, but he did a lot of the like that. I mean, that's very much a fiddle.
It's the guitar player's way of working around a double shuffle. A fiddle player will play, and I'm going to try to air it out here so everyone can see. They'll play like down, up, down on another string, so it'll be like a 3-note grouping, right?
Yeah.
And that's like a Orange Blossom Special and things like that. If anybody's ever heard those tunes, on guitar, obviously we don't have those kind of luxuries of a bow, and so that's where the cross picking thing really kind of originate, was to kind of make up for those double shuffles. Will you do the cross picking pattern that you do? And here's a question: do you play down, down, up, or do you alternate all your cross picking?
Man, it's weird. It's a very weird thing, but I do. So I've never like really sat and tried to figure it out what I was doing, because for the longest time it's just been teaching myself and picking up stuff. So I've been doing a couple of instructional things, and so I've been trying to break this stuff down. And so it's weird whenever I play a slow song, like if I'm playing a Stanley Brothers thing or something with cross picking, it's down, down, up. But like for anything past that tempo, it's down, up, down. And so I don't know what the correct way to do it is. I just kind of play it,
Dude, that's it. So you do it at tempo the way that I do it, which is to alternate picking all of it, but you're still just crossing over the strings as they need be. Like I remember learning that stuff probably a lot like you, where I was learning it from, bluegrass cassettes and stuff, because bluegrass music, there wasn't a lot of that around. I mean, like you had to go find it, and when you could find it, there wasn't necessarily visual representation of it. So the first time I remember seeing Tony do it, Tony with the anchor in, and it just looks like nothing's happening. And it's like, how did that sound come from this? So for those that are interested in this, the Tony Riceism and the example that Trey gave at the slower tempo is a 3-string set, and it would be down, down, up. And then when Trey played it faster, he went to the down, up, down. I can't even do the down, 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 up. Like at any tempo, I have to alternate pick it because it does. I'm out of time if I don't do it.
It's a weird thing, man. It doesn't feel natural. Like it doesn't. For some reason, it does. Like when I'm playing something slow, but it doesn't feel natural to do it. Like you'd really have to think what you're doing. I mean, I know George Shuffler, that was what he did, but but that's I'm not George.
I mean, one of the ones that really got me on cross picking. There was 2 records. One was the Markology record that had Dan Crary and Tony Rice, and they were doing that fluid drive or whatever, and it also had Mark's version of the.
Oh yeah.
like whatever. What was that Dixie Breakdown, right? So
Yeah.
so those tunes were the first time that I really got into cross picking. I didn't know it was called cross picking. I just it was the banjo sound played on a flat top, right?
Yeah.
So that Mark O'Connor record, and there was another one that Dan Crary did that was the Say Old Man, Can You Play a Fiddle? What there's two names for that song. Ladies Fancy is one name for
Oh
it,
yes,
right?
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know that
And it's
song.
also Say Old Man, Do You Play the Fiddle? And it's the same song. It's like the
Yeah,
like whatever that tune is.
yeah, yeah.
But that's the first time I'd heard guys really do that cross picking thing. And you do it so well. I mean, that's like the first time I heard you do it, I was like, yeah, that's the prototype. Like that's how you make it sound. And it's difficult in our worlds to do to project, right? Because you play with a banjo or whatever, immediately it's just like they're so freaking loud, dude. Banjo
Yeah.
players are playing. They're the guys that play through 412s. Like
Exactly.
in the bluegrass world, the banjo players playing through the 412, and it's all
Oh yeah,
the guitar player has to get over that. When you're playing.
yeah.
So, man, while you got your guitar in your hand, I have to ask you about those little. We had talked about at the beginning the little pull-offs, the way you'll put those triplet pull-offs, and it's almost like a little double time
Yeah.
blast. Man, will you talk about that for our viewers?
Yeah, man. Sure enough, I think it started. It kind of for me all goes back to Tony. With like those kind of pull-offs. And then when I got into electric guitar, the Brent Mason kind of thing. That. Yep. And so I don't know where it kind of went into the double time thing. Like I said, it just kind of happened one time. Like I was playing a gig, or I don't know if I was practicing, but where I sped it up to, do like the. It's just basically that, but.
Man, we do just a little piece of a fiddle tune of your choice, and
Yeah, man.
the whole fiddle tune, just a little bit, and how you would do, like if the tune's at like red haired boy or whatever, and you do like when you do those little triplets in there, like any tune that you want that you can make an example on the cuff right here, because it just sounds so cool, and I want our viewers to kind of get a magnifying glass of it.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
There it is, right there, right there.
Yeah, like that.
Could you do that? Could you slow that down a little bit and talk about the hammer-ons and pull-offs that are happening to do that?
Yeah, and part of that one right there is like a Jerry Douglas sort of thing. Like,
yeah, would you show us that?
So it's just like a. So yeah, like slowed down. It's just.
Is
like
the first one a hammer-on? So there's two picks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually playing. So I'm hammering on, and I play both of those notes. So I'm playing most of it except for the hammer-ons. I'm like even the pull-offs. I'm using notes.
So when you go up to the next string set, you're playing. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then what's the last one?
So it's.
Yeah, so you're that kind of sound, right?
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Okay, so how do you come back down it? We do it walk through.
So
there is like a moment of resetting the direction. Play that one more time.
Yeah, man. So slow, it would be like. That's yeah, so there's open strings.
Yeah, so you got, is it, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, I see. That's the really main point of directional picking, the pivot moment, right? Where you, the first three sets, if you're trying to do this at home, are you do it on one string set, the same thing again, the same thing again. So when you get to the top of the E string, that is when you're essentially pivoting the axis and
Yeah.
creating a new thing to descend it back down. Will you do it one more time so these
Yeah,
guys?
man, absolutely. So slow from the start.
Beautiful, man. So that's a lot of, there's another thing in there I want to point out. We grass guys love having the minor third against the major third. Like in the key of G, I think that's why so many grass guys love the G position, is because we get, we
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
all of those sounds are really important to this style of music and this what's the right word, Trey? Like the accent, really, like when you learn a
Yeah,
new
exactly.
language, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really important fundamentally to kind of appreciate the flaw in the guitar's tuning, right? Because a mandolin's tuned perfectly, a violin's tuned perfectly. Guitars make sense, and then all of a sudden B to G doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
but it's in that lick right there, and in that style, that like Douglas-ism that you did, it's like that is the advantage to the tuning, right? Man,
Yeah.
that's so freaking good. That thank you for taking a little bit of time to do that. I want to ask you about your singing, because your singing is spectacular. The song choices that you guys do on your duo records are so good. I listen to your Grateful Dead, Friend of the Devil, at least once a week. Like that. For those that haven't heard that, go stream it, go listen to it. It's so good. Man, did you start singing right out of the gate, or is that something you kind of grew into, or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I always sang, and it's weird. Like I started out just well, I think that was what it was. Like I wanted to play guitar, and my dad kind of said, well, if you play guitar, or if you're gonna sing along with it, because I was just more or less worried about playing the licks and stuff. Like I was wanting to learn the Charlie Waller stuff, and it's like it's a good tool to have to if you're gonna sing, and it's one of those things I've never really liked, and I've heard Tony talk about it. Like it's just something that I do. It's not anything that I've really like focused on a whole bunch. It's for me, I always consider myself a guitar player first, and singer way much further down. And so yeah, I don't really pay any attention to it. It just kind of was second nature to this. It's like if I'm gonna play this, especially in like bluegrass jams or just by myself, because my parents knew that I didn't have any, they didn't play, and none of my family played. So, I'm going to have to accompany myself. So
It's amazing to me because you've got this way in your music to thread obviously the bluegrass influences, but like one of the things that I hear in your, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I hear like this moments of Keith Whitley. Like I really hear that kind of influence, and moments of Merle, and like those kind of like deep turns, that's not
yeah,
very common in bluegrass. It's more of a country thing, really,
yeah,
when you're thinking about it. Man, that's interesting that you consider yourself like, it's.
yeah. I mean, it's and that was part of it too. Is that I've never, even when I was a kid, just starting out, I never could sing bluegrass tunes. Like I never had that voice, and
because it's that high lonesome thing, right? Like bluegrass is always
yeah, it's like
considered to be that thing.
maybe when I was 10, I had that voice for a day and a half, and but I loved bluegrass and I wanted to sing it. And then, when I was 11, I played on the Opry with Marty Stewart, and which was a big vocal influence and guitar influence and musician, just an artist. He was a big influence to me. And not long after that, I got to play a little bit with Johnny Cash, and I think that kind of solidified it. It was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sing the way I sing because it's gonna be deeper than than any bluegrass that I can do. And so, like, yeah, it's one of those things. Most times at bluegrass jams and stuff, everybody calls songs in B flat and B, and I was calling those songs in E and G. And so, like I say, at a certain point, I just sing the way I do. But there's definitely more country influence in my singing, and even my guitar playing. There's a lot of country influence or rock and roll. I mean, like I tend to bend strings more than bluegrass players do, and it's just something that I've always kind of done. But I think that listening to Roy Nichols and all the that kind of
And
stuff.
those are 13s, kids. Just keep that in mind.
It took a while, man. It took a while. Well, I played I played acoustic guitar, and then I switched to electric guitar for like 6 or 7 years. That's all. I didn't play it acoustic guitar hardly at all. And then when Rob and I started our duo, I went back to acoustic guitar, and it was definitely a learning curve. It was definitely a few times of leaving the stage, and I remember one time in Europe, one of our first trips out, I had blood all over the side of my guitar because I just bit a string too much, and it kind of, not to be graphic, but yeah, I mean that part of it has drawn me as much as the bluegrass stuff. It's
Let's
like
talk about that for a second, man. You got the monk thing behind you. I know you enjoy some jazz. I've seen you shred it up on electric, man. Talk about some of those other influences and what kind of has tickled your ear over your musical voyage. You know what I mean? That isn't
yeah,
bluegrass.
it's one of those things where I feel like I've always been kind of searching for the next thing that's going to get me excited. I just know how I felt when I, heard Charlie Waller the first time, or heard Flight of Scruggs, or Tony Rice. I remember the day that I got Manzanita just like it was yesterday, and that's been, almost 20 years ago. And so the jazz thing came from Tony, obviously. I went to see him at the Down Home in Johnson City, and
Is that where you're from? Are you from Johnson City?
I am, yeah, from
Oh,
Jonesboro,
man.
so
Okay.
right there.
Yeah, so you went
And
to see him at the Down Home.
yeah, I mean, I saw Tony there, Doc. Down Home's just a great place, man. It's still going, and love the Down Home. But the first time I saw Tony there, he kicked off with this Jimmy Martin tune, Big Country, and it was just him and Wyatt and who else? Ronnie Simpkins and I cannot think of her name. She plays in Daryl Scott's band now. Great, amazing bass player.
It's not the young lady that's married to Vince Logan, is it?
I'm not sure. Possibly.
Because I know Vince. I think
Bryn Davies. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, she's amazing, man. And so it's a great show. But yeah, he kicks off the Big Country, and then the second song is My Favorite Things, and it's like this 20-minute, version. And yeah, as soon as he gets done with it, he said, first song was Jimmy Martin song, that one was a John Coltrane song, and it's like that. I just remembered that name, and John Coltrane meant nothing to me at that point. I never heard of anything, never heard his name before. And I think a few years had passed, and I bought Kind of Blue because it had John Coltrane's name on the front of it. It was a Miles record, but and that blew me away. And it was one of those another in those records that I remember when I got it and listened to it, and I. There's this record store in Easton and Johnson City. I don't know if it was a chain, but it's Cat's Music. And
it was a chain. I remember going to the one in Knoxville.
Yeah, and so I knew there was one like in maybe in Gatlinburg too. and so I don't know how many of them there were, but they were kind of like, these little local record shops, and that's the only one that was in Johnson City at the time. But the guy that ran the front desk, I was in there almost every day. Like after school, I'd have my mom take me to Cat's Music and just look around, and they were always playing something cool, on the radio. And so that guy, man, he would save stuff back, and he knew when I would come in there. And so he always had the JD Crowe stuff, or like any new bluegrass stuff. But he would also be like, well, you're a guitar player, here's Johnny Winter. You'll probably dig this.
Yeah.
And so everything that I got into, in my teenage years was because of that guy. I remember when I went in there one day when the Robert Plant and Alison Krauss record came out, and he said, he saved me back because he's like, he knew I was going to come get it. And it's like, oh man, I know Allison. I don't know who this Robert Plant guy is. And he's like, you don't know Zeppelin? And like, no, man, I don't have a clue. And so he gave me a copy of Led Zeppelin, and that was kind of the first rock and roll stuff I'd listened to. And so, yeah, like everything but it was really, I think he knew that there was that too, because I would come in the next day and I'd be all excited about whatever, blues music or jazz or rock or whatever, and I think he knew I was always kind of searching for stuff. And so a lot of that, like Iron Maiden and there was just a lot of stuff that I was listening to, and I still listen to, a little bit of everything. Just now it seems like I listen to more jazz, like the monk stuff, and it's a lot of stuff that I listen to doesn't even have a guitar on it, which is unbelievable to, if I would have been 10 and told myself that, hey, in 20 years, you're going to be listening to a lot of music that doesn't have guitar on it, I would have said I was crazy. So.
Yeah.
But it's just picking up licks from everything, man,
You mentioned blues, and you kind of mentioned it in passing. This is one of the last things while I've got you here, I wanted you to kind of get into. You had a pretty amazing scenario, I guess, the end of last year where you got to work with Taj.
Yeah, man.
Man, will you tell everybody about that? I don't want to give away your punchline, man. You tell everybody about that scenario.
So we had Rob and I just did this record called World Full of Blues. And so the title track of that record, it's not a blues album, it's got a couple blues things on it, but I don't even know what kind of music we do. It's not, it's classified as Americana, but there's a little bit of jazz, a little bit of rock, a little bit of everything on it. It's kind of like what I listen to. But we had this song, and we're lucky enough to have Brent Mayer produce this record, and then he's working with us again. But he, whenever we were talking about this, we said, well, we want a special guest on this song, but we don't know who, and so we'll make a list of like your 10 dream guest artists, and we'll it could be anybody, it could be, anybody from Clapton, whoever you would think would be a dream artist to have on this song. And the top of mine and Rob's list was Taj. And he said, well, let's start there. Let's just ask Taj if he wants to be involved in it. And so Rob knew Taj's drummer, Kester Smith, who he played in a band with Rob for a short while out in California, I think, or maybe they did some shows together. Rob and Kester and Ben Harper. And so Rob called Kester and was like, we'd like to get Taj on this record. Do you think you could let him hear this song? And like a day later, Taj called and said, man, I'm in, And so he flew out from California we flew from Hawaii to Nashville, and just absolutely slayed. I mean, as soon as he sat down and played his guitar, there's video of it. He did like an intro thing. And, if you look at that video of World Full of Blues, that's as soon as that man sat down at 10 o'clock in the morning, it just pours out of him. And so we've been lucky after that to work quite a bit with Taj, done some shows with him, just played the IBMA award show with him. And we're actually working on a record with him. And so, man, it's been great. Talk about a dream come true. He was one of those people I remember getting, Giant Steps and that self-titled record that just got inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame last year with Jesse Ed Davis playing all the slide guitar part. You know, it's kind of the birth of the Allman Brothers was because of that record. And but Taj is amazing, man. He's just it's been unbelievable to get to work with him.
Dude, what a cool story, man. Like that's super awesome. So, on the horizon for you, what is it that you guys have got coming out soon or planning for next year? I know everything's speculative on touring, but are you writing right now? Like what's in your how have you adjusted essentially to prepare for next year's year when you know that you can't start booking shows today? Like what have you done? What have you guys done?
I mean, you know, like we had such a busy year this year, but we toured pretty extensively. I mean, we hit the road pretty hard, and especially since we just put out this record. You know, it came out last October, I think, and so this year was slammed. And
Up until, of course.
Up until, yeah. So I mean, we had a busy January, February, and we're actually playing a gig tonight at City Winery. You know, it's the first gig since March.
Is this your first one?
First one since March.
My first one was last week.
Man, it's so weird. Well, you know, we've just been talking getting on track here. We've been writing a lot, you know, and we just wrote with Taj this week, and we were kind of talking about that with him. I mean, guys, the longest any of us have gone without gigging or playing with another human. You know, it's like I've done some live streams here at the house. I've been doing like a weekly one. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and she loves the live stream night because she comes up and she sings a couple songs, and she watches it downstairs while I'm up here recording it. And so she looks forward to that more than I do, really. And it's been fun to be, you know, it's been great to be home and spend time with family. But next year, you know, everything that was booked this year got moved to next year. So we'll see how that's going. But we've written a ton, man. We've basically all summer has just been, you know, writing songs. And so Rob and I are working on our next record. We've got 3 songs cut already, which kind of lean more to the country side of stuff, you know, which will be interesting. We haven't done a record like that. So, and then I'm supposed to be working on a solo record soon. And then the record with Taj, you know, we're just kind of working on studio stuff. And I've played on a lot of people's records, and yeah, just staying positive and staying as busy as possible.
That's right. Do you have a favorite studio in Nashville that you like to cut at?
Oh man, there's a lot of great ones.
I know that's a loaded question. I'm not supposed to ask things like that, but you know, I was like, hey man, do you have a favorite one that you like? That is a favorite room or whatever that you like?
Yeah, I mean the one that stands out now is the one we've been working at a lot, which is the Blue Room in Nashville, Brent Mayer's studio. It's kind of a newer one, but it's right beside a House of Blues. It's in Berry Hill, you know, on that same little stretch where a lot of the studios are. I love working there. I love working at Compass Records, which is it used to be owned by the Glazer brothers, and so like all John Hartford, the Steam Parrot Aeroplane was recorded there. All of those Waylon records were cut there, and so I love working there just for that.
The cool factor, the mojo. Yeah, for sure.
I like getting into the little booth where there's a picture of Waylon, you know, recording "Dreaming My Dreams." Yeah, sitting right there. It's like, oh, that's freaking cool. But I mean, there's a lot of great studios, and you know, Ocean Way, and I just worked at Sound Kitchen a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Love the studio, and but yeah, I mean, as far as feeling like I'm at home, that Blue Room has kind of been that, you know.
Do you have a favorite microphone miking technique that you like for your acoustic?
Man, I'm like the most. I have no clue about any of that stuff.
I've put it on there and play
a little bit more. You know, I've nerded a little bit more recently, just because I'm trying to set up stuff here at the house, you know, to record.
Sure.
But I'm so ignorant on it that it's just like, man, throw whatever. I mean, the mic that I used on the last several things that I've done is just, it's a really inexpensive mic. I can't think of the name of it, but on my guitar, at least, it sounds great. But for like the last few records, we used DPA mics, and those are
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a specific spot that you like when you're like aiming your guitar? Like where do you like to
Yeah. If I'm only going to focus on one, I like to have one kind of, right at the neck, where the neck meets the body. Um, Really, and it depends on the guitar too. Like this guitar is a little bright in the studio, so
Which guitar is that? What model is
it's
that?
a bourgeois, but it's a slope D35, so it's kind of like it's the shape of a J35, but it's the width of a D18,
Gotcha.
and so it's a little of both worlds, because I love Gibson guitars and I love the sound of them for bluegrass flat picking, but I don't own any, and so this was dipping my toe in the water of that world. But that bourgeois makes great guitars, and
Yeah, they do.
this is my go-to. It plugs in, sounds great.
Favorite
And
pickup that you're using? You got a favorite pickup?
yeah, I do, man. I like the bag stuff. The Lyric's great. I use that in this guitar, which is just basically a microphone inside. And then the Anthem SL is it's like between those two, whichever
Who
one.
makes the Anthem?
LR Bags.
Bags makes the Anthem too. Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they're great. It sounds like the Lyric. I've heard people say that they can feed back a little bit, but I mean, I play on stage with drums, and sometimes like this guitar, I'll have to put a feedback thing in there, but most time it's fine.
Is
I
the
can
volume control like right here on that?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the reason I use the Anthem SL instead of the regular Anthem. Like full Anthem is this whole big thing where you got a lot of settings.
Yeah.
I have a nervous tick on stage if I don't have the feedback thing where I'll just sit and roll those knobs.
Yeah.
So any guitar that's got the regular Anthem, I'll have it all messed up by the time it comes to play.
That's funny, dude. That's great. I just got a preamp that's really cool. I don't know if you've checked out the Grace Audio.
Oh yeah, man.
It's really great, man. I wish I had it sitting here next to me. Actually, I've got it in hand shot. Check this out. So,
Yeah, man.
Mandolin obviously plugged in is the nightmare. Like I hate plugging in mandolins, but also it's like you have to plug in the mandolin. It's like
Yeah.
you don't really get an option unless. But this was the board that I made that I used for that flats gig did last week. But this is the preamp I was talking about. This would be cool to show the viewers.
Oh
It's
yeah.
this thing. So they make several options of this. You were talking about having too many knobs and tweaking too much. That's my problem too. If I have a floor full of knobs, I'm just gonna sit there and twiddle and screw
Yeah.
with it and nonstop. So the great thing about this guy is it's just got four knobs. It's got technically it's got four, but it's got gain, low, high, and then the boost knob is its own boost. And for mandolin and for flat picking, it's nice to be able to strum as hard as you want and then step on the boost to bring it up. How do you handle that for live? Like what preamp are you using?
Exactly what I do, man. I'm using so that's on my list. I want to get one of those Grace designs, but for a long time now, I've just been using a Fishman Platinum Pro EQ. So it's got a lot of knobs and stuff. It's a great pedal, and it's indestructible. And that's been the problem with so it's got a boost pedal that I use on every song. I mean, I use it a ton, within a night, because
It's in the same housing. The boost.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So it's just one pedal. It's about the same size as that one, but it's got all the EQ stuff, which I don't really use, and it's got it's the DI tuner, which is nice. I like to have the tuner on board, and then that boost pedal. And so I've used a couple different ones, and there's one that I used that I won't mention what it was, but I wore that boost. Literally the boost thing was broken by the end of the night, just because I use it twice on every song, because
same. I can break some stuff in a hurry, and
and
then do it 2 months straight. It's like,
yeah, man.
it's like one of the things you see on everybody's product catalog or demo or gear or whatever. It's like, oh, built so tough. I'm like, we'll see
Yeah.
about that, my man.
Let me try it for about a month, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But I stomp stuff, man. I just don't say. I think it's you get up there and you get nervous and it's unintentional and but I mean those fishermen. I've gone through a couple of them.
Yeah.
But they've been great.
And that's the thing too, is I think when you just shout out to all the companies that represent you and me too. It's like it's easy to break stuff when you're playing every night and you're in boots and you're stepping on stuff. This is stuff that's designed to be stomped on, constantly.
Yeah.
So it's like, people are like, "Oh man, I can't believe you broke that." I'm like, it's like I did 21 shows on it this month. How do you not believe I didn't break it? You know what I mean? It's like, it's not, and that doesn't mean it's like fault of the gear. It's just like, there's a complete difference when you're, and two, it's like string gauge and pick gauge. It's like I can be at home in the comfort of my home and get away with a lighter touch or whatever. But the moment it's like go time, it's like immediately I'm digging in extra hard, stomping on stuff extra hard.
Yeah, man. It's the nature of the beast. You get out in the real world and it's a totally different animal. You deal with nerves, you deal with playing with other instruments. There's just a lot of stuff and like I say, I mean, this gear, it holds up well, especially stuff you stomp on. But even guitars, it's like you can't expect to play one guitar, for 200 shows a year and not have some issues or not have stuff, get like every guitar, and this one, I've worked with several different guitar companies, and it's funny, every time they see their guitar the next time, it just looks like it's been through war. And it's like, well, it basically has. It's like it's been through every airport. It's been on every, it's like the best you can do, it's going to get dinged up. But yeah, like you're saying with string gauges and picks, that's why it's important to get out and go to jam sessions or play with other people, because that's when you really find out what works and what doesn't.
And it's so cultural in bluegrass. It's far more cultural to jam with other players and go to those types of events than it is in other genres of music.
Yeah.
Even going to UT and being at jazz school, it's like people didn't get together and jam, and like in the bluegrass world, it's like, hey man, you want to come over for a couple hours, sit on the porch and pick? And it's like, yeah, man, I'll come over and sit and play every Bill Monroe tune under the sun. It's like, it's just a little more in the vibe of the hang or whatever, it's like together. It's almost like saying you're going to go fishing or something. It's like, well, just get together and play some Kenny Baker tunes,
Yeah. It's funny. I did this gig with this guy that was a jazz drummer, and he played with Allison Brown. We did a bluegrass tribute to Johnny Cash up in New York City a couple years ago, and he was just amazed backstage because everybody was just picking. It's like it was a bunch of bluegrassers, and so for the 2 hours we had before the show, we were all just sitting around playing, and
then play the show.
Yeah, and then played the show. And so for the rest of that trip, he just had this thing where he would say, "You want to pick?" And it was just kind of making fun of us.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
We'd all pick,
Exactly.
But yeah, it is culture. It's a culture.
Well, man, tell everybody out there. I always say I like to do a little housekeeping. Tell everybody where they can find you. If this is their first time getting exposed to what you do, where are the links? How can they get a hold of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, so I've got, my website's TreyHensley.com. Rob and I have a website. That's my main gig, is I play, with Rob Ike. So it's robandtrey.com. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. Everything is Trey A. Hensley, all the, / Trey A. Hensley, and YouTube, and then Rob and Trey for all the Rob Ike Trey Hensley stuff.
Dude, this made my day. I'm so glad you agreed to come on the show and hang out and pick a little bit for us and show us some of that firepower, man. It's great to have you on here. I adore your music, man. It's so good.
Well, man, right back at you. You're one of my favorite guitar players, and so I appreciate you having me on, man.
All right, brother. Well, hang loose, and to all the viewers out there, tune in, visit Trey's site, and we'll see you guys real soon.